What's up everyone, it's TGSF. I know previously I said next video was on the Frightguard debate, but I decided to delay it for no particular reason, so let's get to the point. One of the biggest debate in the Fnaf community that been lasting for like 1 or 2 years now is the Fnaf book canon. As in Fnaf here are multiple set of book telling story of an explored side of the Fnaf story, and what somewhat started this debate is the first Fnaf book, being the Charlie Trilogy. Now this book was immediately confirmed by Scott to not be in continuity as it was a reimagining of the story. However, this first impression heavily impacted how people see any book. The thing with that is this statement was made around when Fnaf 4 was still pretty much the end, but when Sister Location released we now have Purple Guy being officially called William Afton, and with FFPS we have Henry from the novel. The puppet is revealed to be the main protagonist of the novel, Charlie. Baby is the daughter of Afton from the novel, Elizabeth. So from this point it clear the novel influence event in the game, but at this point the novel are more used as having similar thing from the game that might not be the exact same, but still similar, so basically how the community use parallels, so at this point the community is using the book like that, might have similar element but also said element can be different. Then we get to Fright. So Scott made 2 statements about Frights. The first one was when Fazbear Fright was coming. In this statement, Scott says some stories in Fright are directly connected to the game and some not. For the second one, we gotta give some context that led to this statement. So around this time Fazbear Fright Into the Pit book just released, and a bit after this MatPat release his theory on it. It was the episode The Crime of 1985, and in it MatPat used Into the Pit to say the MCI took place in 1985, and he also said he thinks some part of Fright will be from canon part to the game. From what I've heard, people from the community were skeptical of it, and it here the Scott statement come in. I quote, "Just a note about the story, I've enjoyed the memes roasting me about the plot line lately, but it does have a serious underlying concern from many in the community, and I hear you. The question is this, is the lore solvable? Since that's kind of like asking is the story complete, in an ongoing story, it's difficult to answer. So, let me say this instead. Over the next few years there are a lot of projects planned, and most are very story driven. Lots of the later stories will answer some of the biggest questions from the fan base over this past year, in my opinion. Very few people will likely ever feel completely satisfied, as there are just too many headcanons out there and so many great ideas on where the story could go, but I think there are good things to be found for people who are looking. All I can do is say that some questions will be answered, even if it may not always be the answer you wanted. Be patient. Let me at least say this, future games will look forward, but look to the novels to fill in some of blanks to the past. So yeah, most of this statement refer to Fazbear Fright. I think the part where Scott say most of the future project are story driven strongly indicate he was mostly referring to the book, especially when he straight out say look at the book to fill in blank from the past. Okay, so why is Fazbear Fright's continuity so hard to talk about? Short answer, it all the fault of this dude, but longer answer. Here are 2 main factors that make Fazbear Fright being canon somewhat controversial. Number 1, connect to what we just talked previously, the fact the previous and first book series did have element connected to the game but was not in continuity, which lead to the question, by directly connected to the game, is it in continuity? Second point come from the stories themselves. Some stories make people question if it possible to take place in the game. The story that mainly make you wonder this is Count Away, I guess, as a Funtime Freddy is in Millie's garage. For some reason, as well as any story that could have incoherence with the game, people also use In the Flesh, because, you know, and he told me everything because Fazgoo, which are both extremely weak arguments, but we'll get to it later. Okay, let get to argue both factor, now let be for real. Scott literally said directly connected to the game, it not like he said a little bit connected or slightly, he said directly, it not something you can ignore. Directly is a strong word. The Novel Trilogy is actually a little too different to use as the same level as Fright. Like I previously said, when The Silver Eyes released, it was around when Fnaf 4 was out and considered to be the last game, and the game's story wasn't going to expand, so the novel weren't meant to be anything more than a reimagination. Fright, however, was made after the Novel Trilogy already had a few transformation to share element from the game with the objective of being directly connected to the game. So yeah, it is in continuity, Scott said so. Now for the second factor. For the Count Away example, it could have been possible a second Funtime Freddy infected by agony. We know here could be replicate of him like Yendo, so maybe it just that. Here are a lot of different explanation explaining that. Now I'll mention something that remove lot of stories out of that arguments. The simple fact Scott say some story are directly connected to the game, and some not, and after reading the book you can easily identify which is which. so each book has an epilogue that tell the story of the Stitchwraith. This group of story are called the Stitchwraith Stinger, and part of the Stitchwraith Stinger directly connect to other story through Fright. Here's every story connected: Into the Pit, To Be Beautiful, Count the Ways, Fetch, Out of Stock, 1:35 a.m., Step Closer, Dance with Me, The Man in Room 1280, Blackbird, The Real Jake and Hide and Seek. Here are possible implied one, but these are the confirmed one. But that why it a weak arguments when people bring up Fazgoo or Mpreg Baby Springtrap. While those two thing are weird, very weird, those just happen to be the two story that are not even canon, so it doesn't matter how weird it even is, and even if it was canon it not like it important to the story. And honestly, one of the main reason we don't want to accept Fright canonicity is because of stuff we don't want to accept. Could talk about lot of stuff Fright canonized some people wouldn't like, however I can make this section using this one character a lot of us dislike, and 5 unique people like. Andrew, I need this character retcon. So if you've been around this channel you know I've been pretty vocal about disliking Andrew, so who is he? So Andrew is a character introduced in Fright. Turn out he was a secret 6th victim in the MCI, and in Fright's story The Man in Room 1280 we learn he is the one keeping William alive in Ultimate Custom Night in a Nightmare, and he is the vengeful spirit, the one you should not have killed. Now you may wonder, what about Golden Freddy? We know Cassidy possessed Golden Freddy, and Golden Freddy is literally the character UCN was focused on, so what's going on here? Some people suggest Golden Freddy was actually here to try to get Andrew to stop before leaving anyway. Y'all see why I hate him narratively. He's a character that came out of nowhere that get added in the MCI group, in the last game of the Afton era, just to play a role that Golden Freddy perfectly fulfilled. Golden Freddy already was the mysterious addition to the MCI, without really having a reason to beside being Fredbear, but the last game concluding with Golden Freddy being the vengeful one was a cool twist. It sorta explained why he was mysterious, simply cause he was the most vengeful one. But now I guess Cassidy is just Charlie too. But the reason Andrew as a whole represent a reason people don't want Fright to be canon is he's basically one of those stuff part of us don't want to accept, cause not only Golden Freddy being the vengeful spirit is cooler to us, and it also what we always believed, so just switching what we believe is hard. But at the end of the day it's Scott's story, not ours. In UCN here are things that point out Andrew is indeed a thing. In Toy Chica high school years, Toy Chica does 7 victim. You can attribute the kill to be Charlie, the 5 MCI, and of course, Andrew. Some people argue it Elizabeth or Crying Child, but Crying Child is not even a William victim let alone an intentional one. And same goes for Elizabeth, not an intentional victim. So yeah, pretty logical the 6th one is the 6th MCI victim that the vengeful spirit in the book. Forgot to mention the Into the Pit game by the way, but yeah, we literally have a game adapting the book that's apparently directly connected to the game's story, and that also empathize on a certain unique 6 in a group of 5. Do what you want with that fact. Anyway, since the section is getting long we'll directly move to Tale. Tale is in continuity. If those book series were in a contest of canonicity Tale would win. Until the interactive novel, Tale straight up expand on lot of thing we see in the game. The mimic, backstory about the location, Tale as a whole is basically a big world building for Security Breach. Only thing that make people say it not canon is one, the fact one of the story actually connect to Fright and Eleanor, which we just talked about, and second are few incoherence through the stories between book and game, which honestly I think most incoherence we can just write off as error. I know it might come off as just dismissing evidence because it don't fit my narrative, but honestly when you think about it, would Scott really make the effort to make the most one-to-one thing with the game, just for it to not be one-to-one, and as a hint for that he make it so an animatronics don't have the same toes or something? And I think the not one-to-one argument is genuinely tricky cause it can go infinitely. Fnaf could have the most straightforward book, but if a character wear a different shirt from the game, what prevent you to infinitely argue it a hint Scott left out to say the game is not in continuity? See what I mean? I think the incoherences should have more evidence than one thing. For example, what we found, while it can seem one-to-one with Fnaf 3, the Phantom are different, the night number the protagonists do are different, the ending is different, the map is different. Now that is a great argument of incoherence to say it not one-to-one, as it contradict a lot of main point with the actual Fnaf 3. Coming Home, Susie's design and backstory are different. Good argument. This story is not one-to-one. By the way, if someone was gonna take those two thing and run both of these two story are not Stitchline. However, stuff like William having his missing arm from Fnaf 6, now I think it just accidental, or could even be remnant region some limbs, but at this point of the story William is literally burned to a crisp, so it pretty hard to stay really consistent. Kinda wanna finish the video, so last thing I'll quickly talk about is the week before. So we can all agree it is canon, it literally a prequel to Fnaf 1 saying what happened to Phone Guy. If someone don't believe it canon, I guess it a lost cause, not gonna lie. But anyway, I think I talked about everything that needed to be talked about. At the end of the day, this debate won't end no matter how much we try to prove something, because here's always arguments on both sides that might never be destroyed until Scott says something. Even if a book was referenced in the game, it would be considered a fun reference. If a book was directly adapted into the game, it would just be considered a fun spin-off. So yeah, this debate will always be a thing until Scott says something. All we can really do is move forward with what we believe. If you like this video, subscribe. I post video inconsistently, and yeah, see y'all later.